All right. All right, gang. We're back again. Sorry for what happened, technical difficulties, but nevertheless, we back. We start talking about we're talking about sports and the introduction of the show. Who's more demanding in relationships, men or women? So we're going to kind of pick up on that point. Sorry for the technical difficulties. It is raining here, so sometimes that kind of mess up Wi-Fi. But sometimes I believe in like conspiracy theories that I'm planning on going to another platform, and I let Be Live know that. And not that I'm some megastar or anything like that, but it's just odd that that's the first time something like that happened. That it just ended the stream. So we're gonna see how this pans out, and we're just gonna go with it. So again, the topic is who is more demanding in relationships, men or women, which is an interesting subject matter because I know it'll be a lot of the pointing fingers and the blame game for all the difficulties we have in our dysfunctional relationships.
That's pretty much what they are, man. I mean, you look at you look at a lot of what Western culture is awash in, and it pretty much is dysfunctional. Certainly compared to what we saw coming up as kids and going back to the 1950s and 60s, nothing really resembles what it was. I mean, two parent households are, they're almost essentially a thing of the past. Uh, Men being the breadwinners, if you will, the individuals who actually went out into the world and forged and earned and brought that home, and the wives or the mothers, made do. They kept the household, reared the kids, made sure that the kids were on pace with their academics, graduation rates. I mean, you can look at a lot of things. Not 48, so you can look at a lot of things now compared to then. You say nothing is the same. It's just absolutely nothing. And to put a finer point on that, I was out. Pardon me. I was out at our local basketball court, and I really don't want to give the name up because it'll start pointing fingers. That's not what I want to do. And I overheard a group of elementary school kids using words that I would have. I let's just say I would have gotten a throw ass whipping for using if I were their age, and I was floored. And to me, that type of behavior and where it's learned starts at home. Now, people can blame whoever they want to. And like I said, I'm not in the blame game. I'm in the solutions game. And, far too often we start to see the effects of the culture in the way the kids behave and what they don't do and how they, as we were taught, how they don't mind. They have no respect for settings. They have no respect for authority, and they just have a general disregard sometimes for each other. Now, I understand kids, particularly boys, they're going to fight. I understand girls, they're going to have the disagreements. They're not going to want to hang out with so and so because they think they're prettier or they get this and I don't get that. Those things happen, and those are part of growing pains. I don't have a problem with that. But what I do have a problem with is how these kids treat each other. Because if they treat each other like this now, just imagine what they're going to do when they become adults. And that's part of the dysfunction that we see now that's so prevalent in Western culture is that kids, never mind adults, kids don't get along. Adults don't get along for a whole different set of reasons, which we'll actually start to get into here. But kids not getting along just because it's almost unfathomable. But rarely did I not get along with somebody. Rarely did somebody not get along with me. You just didn't have reasons not to like each other. You were kids, you were playing, and that's another thing that these kids don't do. And I see that's something that COVID has actually brought out is these kids are actually getting out during school and they're exercising. They're running around. I saw kids like I said where I was on the basketball court, running around on the track doing things. I said, yeah, it's long overdue. I remember when
But hold up. Is they doing? Are they doing that shit where they supposed to be on virtual learning?
no, they're actually this is what
Oh, okay.
what the school district in Niagara Falls is doing is I believe some are doing 2 in, 3 out, which means 2 days they're in school and 3 days they're doing virtual learning. This was occurring while they were in school. So, like I was saying, when I went to elementary school, recess and lunch were hand to hand. You ate and then you went out and you blew off that energy. And that's paramount for young males because young males are they're just a bastion of energy. And for them to be able to sit and focus like they want young females to do, they need to be able to burn off that energy. Boys learn differently than girls. And I hope that's not news to somebody right now. We just do. Boys tend to be hands-on where girls learn by watching. This is why they used to take your young girls into the kitchen. You stand by the stove and watch your mother do this, watch your mother do this. You have a question, she would show you. Boys, you have to learn by doing. Rarely do you sit there and talk to a boy and tell him something and he learns. It's just not the way we're wired. And all this, you know, gender fluidity and saying that there's more than one gender, that's it defies what science has said over and over for generations. Now, anybody want to dispute that? By all means, go ahead and dispute it. I'm just not going to sit there and listen to it. I can't entertain that type of nonsense. It's for me, it just is what it is. But we're gonna get on to what today's topics are, and the first one is a confidant. Now, with the marriage rates in America being what they are, it's almost impossible for the average person, whether you're male or female, to confide in a wife or a husband about something that's going on. And this stems from a stat that David posted about uh girlfriend having a separate bank account that her boyfriend didn't know about. And he went and spoke to one of his good female co-workers who happens to be a confidant of his. And the question was asked, was he right or was he wrong? And the one thing I looked at, I said, well, he's not married. So if he's not confiding in in a male friend of his, whether it's his best friend or somebody he thinks he can trust with the type of secret, then he's bound to sit there and not talk to it about anybody, which really doesn't help the situation any. He just sits there and he festers, and eventually he brings that home, and eventually it manifests itself into an argument which really shouldn't have to take place. I mean, if the female feels that she wants to have a separate bank account, it's if it's her money, she's entitled to it the same way he is. So I mean, there's a lot of this, push and pull, tug and tug, but there's never any give and take, which I think a lot of relationships are going to need to have if they're going to stand the test of time and remain together. But that's just my take on it.
Well, that kind of derived from just the thought process of some women saying, no, that can't you can't have a confidant has to be your other half, because if you're sharing personal information with some other person of opposite sex, it leads to the temptation of you having a relationship with that person, which kind of took me back to years ago when I worked at Bryan and Stratton College. One of my close friends that I worked with, as a going away gift, she had, oh, thank you, David, congratulations, on your new job. Love such and such. You're a confidant or something like that. So it was not, it was nothing major. We didn't have any type of relationship or anything going on, but I was someone professionally that she could open up and trust me with information like her struggles on the job. So that was the nature of our relationship. But I think when people hear that word confidant, they think of secrets and things like that, and automatically that means, oh, that those two are going to end up in some type of personal connection, and it doesn't always um, mean that's the case, because some people, the only connection you may have is professionally, and y'all may both be on the same mission, like work at the same place, but your goal may be, we got to get the hell out of this place. So y'all work together, and that's what the nature of it was, because at that point I was trying to get up out of the job, and I'm not no tech guru with the computers and doing all the cover letters and all of that stuff. She did that for me because she knew my frustrations. So I could count on her, and that was her role. And when she struggled on the job, and because I was there for years, I would make it easier for her too. I would help her out. So that was the nature of our friendship or our connection. So it doesn't always mean she's at the copier and I'm coming behind and I'm slobbing on her neck or whatever the case is. But people had those notions in their heads. So I tend to think that, hey, if y'all got the same, if y'all working toward certain goals and y'all working together, there may be some things that you share with that person because y'all have a strong common interest.
And to that point, I think what a lot of people do is they start projecting their own insecurities and feelings onto other people in other situations. And unfortunately, that's what causes the issues. If you and another individual have a rapport, and this is for anyone, if you and another individual have a rapport where you guys can laugh at jokes and it's just between you, that makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable because A, they can't do it. B, they think there's something going on, which you just alluded to that there isn't. And C, they're not that well liked. Some people have to face it at 34, 35, 36. You're just a curmudgeon.
Hmm.
People don't like you. They don't like your disposition, and your unwillingness to change becomes your downfall. And as you know, it's one of the talking points. It's a messy situation. Sometimes coworkers cause themselves to be alienated because they refuse to change, because they refuse to get along in certain situations. I'm not saying every situation. There may be some people that you just genuinely don't like and you don't get along with. That's fine. You're not supposed to like everyone. You're not supposed to get along with everyone. So the problem becomes, what do you do and how do you handle it? How you handle a how you handle a toxic situation, particularly at work, is a sign of maturity. And there's a lot of people who are still too immature to be working around other people because all they do is cause drama, they complain, and they make the workplace untenable.
Yeah. So, and to go on that point of getting rid of messy situations, come on now. Some of us, that certain situations are messy. Some people are just messy, and some people, that's the center of their conversation. And we talk about this often about sooner or later when you get in a certain age, you kind of stray away from certain people if they bring in too much drama, they got too many issues. I'm sorry. At 50, maybe I could tolerate stuff when I was at 30 or something, but now at 50, I don't want to hear that shit. I can't keep listening to the same sad songs. And I know y'all thinking, well, aren't you a counselor? Aren't you supposed to do that? That's supposed to be in your DNA. Hell no, that is not in my DNA 24/7. Because when you work at a school, especially at the middle school level, you're dealing with all types of hormones and attitudes and behaviors constantly all throughout. Now, granted, we're doing virtual learning, so I had a break from that, which, all right, I want the smoke. I'm ready for, I wish all of this would end and we can get back to school, but I know safety's first. But after dealing with that during the day, and I'm just thinking about back when we were in our regular school setting, I just don't have time for grown ass people to keep complaining about their job. My thing is going to be this: do something about it. Do something about it. If you've been complaining to me for months and months at a time and you still at the same job, why are you talking to me about it? I don't have no desire to hear about your relationship or whatever. The same person that's doing you wrong, do something about it. If you're not willing to do anything about it, then you should just shut the hell up and stop talking to people um, about it. Because sooner or later, it becomes that story of the little boy that cried wolf. You just keep talking and crying, and sooner or later, people are like turn their back on you. So You got to get rid of messy situations. That shit starts stinking up everything, and it starts filtering into your life, and it impacts you. So people need to learn how to branch away from that. No matter who it is, no matter who it is, you only got one life to live. So whether again, if it's your mother, brother, sister, daddy, whoever, children, or whatever the case. I mean, children as adults, and they're coming at you, and it's always some toxic stuff. Got to go. Can't deal with it. It may sound harsh, whatever, and I know some people say, "Oh, I don't want to turn my back on it, man." You only live once. You only live once, and it's easy to stroke up out of this world real fast.
And before we continue on, it is 9:30. We had a little bit of an interruption. We want to thank you, thank you those of you who stayed with us during that disruption. I'm going to read the riddle and I'll also put it in the chat. Big hats and mint juleps. This is a place to go if you want to see a winner and a show. I'll read it again. Big hats and mint juleps. This is a place to go if you want to see a winner and a show. And Dr. Anwar, you are absolutely quiet. If you are going to do something at your place of employment, I would encourage you to have an understanding that what you do, regardless if it's between you two or between three other people or whatever the case is, keep your mouth closed. There's no better way to cause dissension and chaos and to rub other people's faces in something than to let them know publicly that they were not invited to an outing. So if you guys are going out for drinks at happy hour, half an hour, 40 minutes, and there's a couple people that you don't want along because you know they're just going to be a damper, shut up. Don't tell anybody about it. Don't even speak about it within earshot of people who, just earshot of people, period. Text, email, phone call, but don't make it verbal. I'm going to tell you now that there is no better way to cause situations at work by making things verbal that should not be verbal. Just keep it to yourself.
Somebody said Kentucky Derby.
That's not quite what I'm looking for, but that's damn close.
Hmm. Okay, I think I know it,
That's a
but
damn good guess, though. I will say that much.
I think I know it. But I thought I've don't know the answer several times, so I'm just gonna hey have fun with this. Hopefully, somebody can walk away with the stimulus package tonight. All right. So, what other points we want to tackle? Because we made some great points about just talking on the job and just keeping your mouth quiet. It's not meant for everybody to know, but we know we live in a different world at time. Usually, especially if it's after work hours, Herb, and Anwar, people got to post up those pictures with the coworkers. Look where we at. Then you get back to work Monday, and they like, oh, where was y'all at? Oh, I didn't get that invite. Wow, wow, and but people be looking for that validation. So
Yes, exactly. And I personally, I'm making a point. I don't party with my coworkers anymore. I don't care what people say. I don't care what they think about me. I just don't. I'm at that point now where I don't need the validation of my coworkers. I go there and get my job done. Once I'm gone, I'm gone. Smoke trails. See you when I see you. If I don't, nice knowing you.
uh, and that's a good point. And I could say sometimes when you do hang out with your coworkers, some things could happen, uh, especially when people indulge with alcohol and they make a fool out of them damn selves. It usually leads to some type of dissension when you get back to work because people are worried about, oh my god, what is this person going to think of me now? I done had some funny situations in my times that I'm like, man, I'm just glad it wasn't me. Glad it wasn't me that cut a fool. But that's that. We can move on to another point.
Well, let's talk about the list of men and women respectively. Now,
Mm.
the first three things I'm going to mention, I think, are universal to both genders. We're all concerned about finances, faithfulness. After all, those are the top two reasons for divorce and most relationships ending. One individual doesn't make enough money, one individual spending too much money, your finances are out of whack, or this person is cheating with this person, or the assumption that this person is cheating with this person is, those are by far and away the top two reasons why most relationships end. And then there's the attractiveness component. Now, attractiveness is weighted differently for men than it is for women. And let me explain. Women's most attractive time in their life tends to be in their late teens through to their middle 20s. Once a woman starts to hit 30, she loses some of her attractiveness. Now, that does not mean she isn't attractive. It just means physically she's not going to turn heads like she used to when she was 23, 24, particularly if she has had a child. Conversely, attractiveness for men doesn't necessarily tend to be physical at that point. Yes, a man needs a certain physical attractiveness to get a woman interested in him. But if a man just has a physical attractiveness about him and he has no money or what some women like to call style or swagger, depending on who you're speaking to, and something of that nature where it keeps the woman interested in, she's not going to be around very long unless she just wants to have sex with him. I mean, let's call this what this is. So for men, money is a money is the attractiveness that they have. This is why a lot of people say that men shouldn't really date to get married until they're financially secure. Whether that man chooses to have children or he doesn't, the priority is he can support himself and potentially the wife that he takes in or the child that he creates. Women aren't necessarily faced with those type of situations because the simple fact that women have a myriad of forms of birth controls that they can engage in to prevent conception. They also have abortion. They also have adoption. Men don't have those. Men, let's face it, men don't have those luxuries. So if a man is saddled with a child and he has the means to take care of that child, he's always going to be viewed differently than a man who does not. So let's move on to the things that are arbitrary. And we hear this talk about submission a lot. And it's ironic. I was just listening to a BGS video. And for those of you who don't know who BGS is an older gentleman, as I've said on prior shows. He's based out in LA and he's seen a lot of things and he's very well read and an extremely intelligent individual. And one of the things he was talking about was submission. And he specifically mentioned about the Native Black American community. He says, yes, the females of that community will submit, but the men have to submit first. In other words, men have to follow the lead of the woman. Now,
Say what?
yes, he said he was repeating what somebody else said. He said the light bulb went on. He said this is one time where the student has taught the teacher. And for those of you who are unaware, he's been branded by his followers and his subs on YouTube as a master teacher because he teaches so much. And I would encourage um, the brothers out there, listen, go subscribe to that man and check out the catalog of all the information he's been laying down. He's been at this for 5 years. He's got book titles. He's broken down stats. He's discussed a lot of things that can only benefit you if you're willing to listen and willing to apply a lot of what he said. And he is one of a lot of people that has been termed the Black Manosphere. And simply what it is the Black Manosphere is a collection of Native Black American males who are tired of the way that our image is being put out in social media has been denigrated for the last 50 to 60 years, who's actually trying to right the ship. And now they're the tip of the sword in demanding that black men be accounted for. We be respected and we be treated as something more than a walking phallus or an open checkbook. Now I know some women gonna say out there that, well, half of y'all men don't have this, half of y'all men don't have that, half of y'all men can't do this. According to the statistics, that's wrong. More than 60% of Native American black males are above the poverty line. So that means that most, pardon me, well, most men in general speaking, are earning enough to be classified as middle class. And that simply means they're earning about $35,000 a year. Now, of course, depends on where you're living at. $35,000 a year is decent money, or it could be next to nothing. If you're living in New York City, you're poor. If you're living in a major metropolitan area, you probably got to have a roommate, maybe two. That's just the way things are. So now let's move on to the cultural aspect. And I was just talking about that with the mention of the BGS. A lot of what we're starting to see in Western culture is being turned on its head. So with women being able to earn their own money, purchase their own lifestyle, do everything that their mothers weren't able to do financially, they are at a standpoint now where men, they're like, hey, I can take you or leave you. And if you don't do what I want to, I'll just leave you. So how do you as a man handle dating
We'll
in
see.
this environment?
See, see for that when someone is coming at you like that, a woman is coming at you like that, they must secretly feel that you don't have any options. They may feel like you done ran your course. You're not physically fit. Your ass is like an out of shape cop, donut eating, cheeseburger eating, so that your greater days are behind you. So they throw stuff out there like that, and depending on your mental makeup and how strong you are, that that plays a lot into it. And we could go deeper and think about like the violence and stuff that transpires and stuff like that. But usually when they throw that stuff out there, they know his better days are behind him. I'm making good money. I'm looking good. I'm working out. His ass, he all right. He's okay. He does his part, but he's not going anywhere because he has no options. You don't say that to somebody with options because they can bounce right back on their feet. Hey, probably not within the next day, probably within the next hour or so, because all they got to do is make a phone call, and they're in it. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
And this is the term that they use for men like that. They call them homosexuals. They're sleeping with women who have more than what they do. And the hope they have is they don't piss her off enough to where she says, get out, because they have nothing. Like you said, women don't challenge a man that has something going for him because they know he is like you said, he's a phone call away. Hey, he might call Tyrone to pack his stuff. Yo, Tyrone, I need you to come over here and get my stuff up out of this house, man. I'm gone. Now, she can't do nothing. And this is where the trickery and the sorcery comes in. She'll block your entrance, you block your exit, try and do everything to get you to strike her so she can call the police and have you arrested. That's the shiestiness that you have with a lot of people, particularly women, because they know they can't physically dominate you. Doesn't matter how true and war Dusty. And as Cynthia, and I won't say her own name, but as she likes to say, Dusty beta male coons. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, that's a YouTube term that she has coined for brothers who are earning nothing, who aren't building nothing, who aren't doing out there going and doing enough to support a woman and her family. And we start to get into a lot of different nuances with the term family. So I want to kind of straighten this out right now. What used to be known as a family, that definition has changed. Now family can mean a myriad of things. So for a lot of people, a family is a mother and her children. Nowhere is the father even considered as part of the traditional family unless they are married. So just understand how things are. If you want to use a word evolving, I like to use the word transitioning to where women are now dictating a lot of things. They're trying to dictate them to the point where they're in control. And personally, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not affected one way or the other. I live my life externally of what women do. But there's a lot of men, particularly coming up, that are being held hostage, particularly if they're going to college, because they're being socialized to not be the type of men that their fathers and their grandfathers and their great grandfathers were. This is where the term toxic masculinity, toxic masculinity has its origins from. They want men on a leash. They want men to do what they want when they want to and how they want to. But they also want the ability to be able to point the finger at men. And so when something goes wrong, they can say, well, it's his fault because he got me pregnant. He's not earning enough money. He didn't protect me. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. This is one of the reasons why President Trump enacted that order that he did to do away with teaching and the job placement requirements for and I can't remember the term, and I don't want to misquote what the legislation was. But that's why he got rid of the quote unquote affirmative action clause in a lot of job teachings and things of that nature. And Dave, you might be able to speak to that more so than I can. I don't know if that's more your realm.
As far as
The legislation.
qualifications.
Yes.
Well, I'm not one really get into all the legislation aspects of it. So I don't know. I have to probably follow up with that after the show.
Well, no, just in terms of how that's going to impact female hiring, because what it is with affirmative action, females count as a double minor. So they get to check off those boxes when it comes to hiring quotas. So now we look at that and we factor in what's going to be coming down the chute in terms of COVID responses. There's going to be a lot of jobs lost, and if those jobs happen to come um, at the expense of government jobs, guess who's going to be impacted most? Women. So
And, and see when I think of a lot of that stuff, I always try to uh, even when I think on the education realm that we have to get certain take extra credit hours and have our certifications up to partake in classes. And I always say for anyone, just make sure whatever the qualifications, whatever you need, make sure you stay on point, whatever what you need to do. So when you see things are changing and qualifications for certain jobs, or you're reading something and it's saying, oh, in this year, 2022, this is going to be the expectations, jump on that right. Don't wait to the last minute. Stay on point so it's never that opportunity that someone calls you in and say, well, don't look like you have that. Always be thinking ahead and say, I got all my ducks and all my stuff is laid in a row, and I'm good to go. So it's too much for me to keep up with all that legislation and all that stuff. I just try to stay on point with mine.
that's essentially what I was trying to convey. Because this goes back to who is more demanding. When we look at the divorce rates, 4-1 in favor of women filing divorce at a higher pace for a lot of reasons that years ago would have never been a reason to divorce, a reconcilable difference. Well, what does that mean? That means he's not making me happy, so I can send him packing. And if he has more than I do, I can get half just because I bore him a couple kids. We saw that with Dr. Dre just recently, and I don't like to use the wealthy in terms of what happens in divorce, but they are the template for which a lot of people pattern themselves after. So that's one of the reasons why I use that. Now, his wife, or his soon-to-be ex-wife, was looking for just an insane amount of spousal support per month. And the judge said, you know what? This is not going down. And one of the things he was looking for spousal support for was security. Now here it was, he was already paying for her security detail. She got rid of the security detail so she could hire her own. Just said that's not going to happen. And there's a lot of other ancillary things, excuse me, that the judge looked at and just said, you know what? No, this is not going down. So we see a lack of men who are rushing to get married. And this is something else that David posted about with the toilet seat being up. Is that really that big? Is that really a deal breaker? You know, I could see him leaving his dirty underwear on the ground or some things like that. Yeah, that's unsightly. Nobody wants to see that. But let's look at this from a standpoint of who does what. Now, I'm a proponent of little things are deal breakers because those are things that you should go into a relationship expecting, to have done. You know, somebody meet at least the basic requirements of being able to be or at least being able to cohabitate in a space where you guys are both going to be doing certain things that might make the other feel, just who raised you?
So, so before we go into that, so wouldn't it make sense for people to live together before you decide to jump the broom? It seemed like that method is more effective to know if little things like the toilet seat or he didn't tie the bread back, didn't use the twist thing for the bread that aggravates me. If little things like that is going to build up to the point that it's going to cause arguments, damn, you might as well have a trial run a year or two just to see if things is working out better for you. That's my logic, but I know people like, well, why buy the what's the saying?
Why buy the
Why
cow
buy
when you get the milk for free? Or like the women say,
the
why buy the pig
man?
when the sausage for
Yeah, go ahead with that bullshit, man. Go ahead with that, whatever. It's about survival. It's about living, and it's about making things work for you, whatever. You can believe that if you want to, but I think it's worth the trial run just to see.
Well, the problem, now mind you, I agree with you. The only problem comes in when there are children involved, and a very large percentage of women either are single mothers or divorcees with children. So that presents a whole different set of circumstances where if you're a man and you don't have children, you have to deal with that situation.
Yeah,
And
I understand that too. Whatever. Nobody want to. This badass kids keep talking about you ain't my daddy and all of that shit. That could bring the most sane, strong-willed man down to say to a kid, you know where your goddamn daddy at in jail or whatever the case is, or out on out somewhere ask at 7-Eleven asking for 50 cents or something like that. So I can understand that too. So it's a lot to think about.
yeah, so that like I said, it presents a different set of circumstances. And not that having control in your home is a bad thing, but it becomes a situation that has no resolution when an individual is lording that over your head. So if you don't do what they say, they can at any time they want to put you out and make you homeless. And I think men and women do that alike. Now, who does it to a greater percentage? I don't know. Personally, I don't care. I have my own home, and my rules are what they are. You come here, hey, you fall in line. You don't have to. You can always go get your own.
And I can remember one of my buddies back in the days. I think he had went out, and he just ended up crashing at his mother's house, whatever. I guess that was the closest spot he came to, and he was living with a young lady, and he didn't come home, and that was before cell phones and all of that stuff. Might have been the pager area, but he just went and crashed at his mother's house. And I guess when he got up and came there, she had all his shit lined up like get out. So, his mindset was, oh, you done messed up. So he took his stuff and moved out. Then she kept asking, well, I was just upset. I was just upset again. A man with options, you can't take his stuff out the closet or put it in garbage bags and put it on the porch, whatever. because he's gonna get his stuff and go. And you can beg and plead and all that, and he'll say to himself, "I ain't never bringing a damn. I ain't leaving a T-shirt at this house no more. When I get ready to go, give me a bag and I take my stuff and I'm gone."
Like I said, some men are in a position to call Tyrone, and Tyrone be like, "Yo, man, I don't know why you stayed with that chick so long anyway, man. I told you that chick wasn't no good, man. She's a head case. She did this with the other cat she was messing with, man. That's the word on the street, man. She's a control freak." So, I mean, like I said, it goes both ways. But yeah, women, it seems, are more apt to do that emotionally than most men. I think some men, I won't say all, I think some men will question where you've been. They'll at least give you the opportunity to explain what happened. Whereas some women, like Dave just said, they're gonna have you some pack for you and wait when you get to the door, and you can say, "Oh, all right, it is what it is. I'm not wasting no time complaining. I'm not gonna ask no questions. I'm getting mine and I'm stepping. I'm out of here. I'm catching the first smoker out, and I'm not looking back. I'm not gonna be like Job's wife. I'm not gonna turn to a pillar of salt. I'm gonna make tracks. I'll."
But let me ask you this question, Herb. It seemed to me like when you had these situation that a lot of times men move in with women, and I know women response to be like, "That's because they don't have nowhere to stay." I wonder how many men move women into their house.
Oh, you have that. Um, that would be something that I'll probably I'll probably make a Facebook post to see who's living with who or whose name is on a lease or whatever the case is. I know personally, I've only done that once. I lived with a female for a short while, maybe about 2 or 3 months, and at that time I was going to college anyway. But there was some
She kicked you out.
no. I'm going to explain it. There was a situation which I didn't feel comfortable with. She was staying long at work. So to make a long
Uh-huh.
story a shorter story, I packed all my stuff up in my car and went to pick her up at work. And when she got in, she said, "What's this?" I said, "I'm out."
Wow.
She had no rhyme or reason, didn't know what. Well, I said, "Yo, you stand all night at work." I said, "There's no need for me to be at home waiting for you to get home." I said, "Yo, I'm going. I can do this by myself." And turned around and worked.
Mm,
So, like I
okay.
said, I'm gonna tell you about mine. My scalpel game has always been sharp.
uh,
That was back when I was 24. She was 36. I was out. I went and got on my own.
oh, so you were the layaway plan, huh? She had your ass on layaway.
The real peculiar thing about that situation was that situation had the potential to end up with us being married. I will say that much. So it was a weird circumstance on how it all unfolded. But how it ended, I was like, look, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to accuse you of being unfaithful. I'm not going to say you were doing something that you had no business doing. You're a grown woman. You got your own. You do as you want to. I'm not going to question you. I'm out. And I think a lot of men, they're afraid to make that to make that decision because they're not in a position to actually stand up on their own. And that's unfortunate. And I think a lot of women see that type of fear. Like you said at the top of the show, hey, no woman's going to step to a man and demand certain things of him when he has options because she know he's going to avail himself of those options. So what do you do now if you are a woman and you want something from a man to the point where you can't demand it and you have to ask, and if he doesn't give it to you, now you're in a situation because now you have to pack your bags and you have to go. So what do you do? Some people will say, well, that's why women are out there earning theirs and getting theirs and just using men for sex and doing whatever it is they want to do. That's fine. But what happens when you get to be in your 50s and you may not have any kids or your kids aren't there to take care of you and you've fallen into ill health? What do you do? Who do
and
you
see,
call?
and I think some of the big issues is, and I had made a post about that, is the day of the era of social media where people see other people doing this and that, and then they start putting the pressure on their mate. Like, look, this couple, they always on vacation. Or did you see the house that they got? And you start comparing stuff, and then you start wanting what other people want. But prior to that, you were happy with your relationship and you were happy with the direction y'all were going. But when you start visually seeing images on social media, you start thinking like, okay, we could have that. We could be doing that. Don't believe all that shit that people put up there, whatever the case is. Don't believe it. Some of that stuff is straight up fool's gold.
Yeah.
They could be in somebody else's damn house, and people stoop down to some desperate things to try to make themselves look good.
Yeah, man. We're right now, and I'll go ahead and say this: we are living in some very real and potentially soul crushing times. There's going to be a lot of the economic fallout from COVID hasn't really reached its peak. They're talking about another potential lockdown in New York. Now, I'm not sure if that's just New York City or the state as a whole. I know there's been a slight uptick in the positive COVID cases in Niagara County. Now, me personally, outside of work and maybe the grocery store, I don't go to many other places. So my contact with people is pretty much limited. But there's a lot of people, who are out here in social gatherings and they're not taking the necessary precautions, whether it's wearing masks or gathering in spaces where the proper social distancing doesn't permit itself. Those are the people who are really going to have to, be concerned because winter's coming around and we all know that when winter hits, flu picks up, and COVID is a kind of flu. So if you're handling money, touching surfaces that other people touch, and you're going to your face, or you're eating something you haven't washed your hands, just everyday things that we take for granted, you might find yourself on on a hospital bed in the ventilator. I mean, granted, the fatality rate um I think it's like 3, maybe 4% from COVID. But you don't want to be in that in that fatality pool. You just don't. Yeah, and Dr. Anwar has some pertinent information. If you're not subscribed to Dr. Anwar, he has multiple channels on YouTube. I would suggest that you do subscribe to him because he's a doctor of pharmacology and they talk about this type of stuff. People, this information is out here. I know when we come on here, David and myself, we talk about some topics that we try to, you know, foster an understanding between the genders. But this is a very serious time that we're living in. So the more information you have, the better armed you are against preventing yourself becoming a positive COVID statistic. You just don't want to test positive. That is less you have to worry about, particularly if you have minor children that you have to take care of, and that's mainly for women in the medical field. A lot of frontline people are nurses. They're intubating people, they're putting the tubes in. They are working hands on with people who are infected with COVID. So my hat goes out to frontline staff. I know we have a female, Rebecca Johnson, who's a nurse, and I'm not sure if she's working with COVID people. I know some other people who are nurses. So people, take care of yourself and stay clear of people who aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Just lessen the possibility of transmission from person to person. And if that means you have to stay home from an event, if that means you have to miss an event, may miss that event. Live to fight another day. Live another day to go to another event.
What? You think somebody gonna miss something? That function's supposed to be lit, whatever. You can't miss that. That's asking too much. But Anwar did drop the name. He said Big Discussion 76 Science and Technology on YouTube. So yeah, definitely follow up with his platform, and it's all about getting different knowledge from different sources. And It don't always have to be your local news, television show. It's people, intelligent people dropping jewels on a regular basis, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. It's people giving you a lot of knowledgeable information.
Yeah. So, like I said, hopefully this time next year, regardless of who wins the presidency, you know, if whether Trump is reelected or Biden steps in, there's going to be a mess that has to be contended with. There's going to be an enormous amount of job loss. And, this is something that BGS talks about. And if you haven't heard about this, I would suggest that you do some research on it. It's called the UBI, which is a universal basic income. And it's similar to public assistance. The only difference is there's going to be a lot more people are going to be entitled to it, and it's not going to be something that's um, income dependent, meaning that you're going to be entitled to it whether you earn below the poverty line or above the poverty line, because a lot of people are just losing jobs that frankly are never going to return. I know in my industry, and I said this on Dr. Anwar's interview with me a little over, probably just under a week ago. There are 16 million jobs that have been lost in my sector, and I'm in the hospitality and tourism industry. A lot of those jobs probably won't come back. So I'm grateful to still have continued employment. But there's a lot of people who are suffering. We're looking at mass evictions the way we have never, ever thought of in our country. This is going to make the housing crisis look like matchsticks. So people, just be aware of what's going on. And the games that you're playing with get out of my house might come back and bite you in the ass.
Wow. So I think we pretty much over our time. We had the little technical difficulties, but again, Herb, you got any closing words? We like to keep it simple. Don't want to hold you back. I know some people's got work in the morning and got things they need to do. We just like to, like Herb said, come on here, and we like to talk about the gender roles and the different dysfunctions, because I'm a firm believer in we have to talk about dysfunctions before we talk about perfect situations and all that. You don't learn from that. You learn from mistakes. If everything went perfect, where's the teachable moment?
Right.
So I like to focus on dysfunctional situations, and we all know that we have a lot of dysfunctions, and we talk about this often about even this presidential election that's coming up. If we can just handle our business in our homes and start from there, suddenly things become a lot easier, and you say, man, I don't give a damn about what they got going on here. We solid right here. And a lot of our situations were not solid. So then you wondering and you praying like, oh, if Joe Biden becomes president, all of a sudden your fortune's gonna change. As
Yeah.
Herb said, newsflash, it won't. It won't. You have to control what you can control, and that's you and your situation. So, as Herb said, keep on saying, get out my house or do this and that. You find out it's not that easy. It's not that easy. Now, in certain situations, some people they need to be put out somewhere, especially if it's a toxic situation and you're holding your end and they're just there. But for the most cases, if you're nitpicking and looking for stuff and that person is, doing what he need to do and you just got demands because your girlfriends or your homeboys is doing this and that, and you have expectations, then you're setting yourself up.
And with that, you know how I like to end this show. Growth and understanding occurs in the gray area. Godspeed and see you next time.
All right, so we'll see you next time under a new platform. I'm gonna follow behind Anwar and check that out because I don't like too many dysfunctions with the platform, and it seemed like this one run into some issues, but that's for another story, another day. But thank you all for who was patient with us and stayed with us and dialogued in the thread. Also, I'm gonna be posting the the riddle and try to keep that going. And hopefully we'll have a winner. If not, the money is still there. Like I said, we ain't lying like Congress. It's there. In fact, I got to make sure my part is there too. But all right, we're out. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe. Just for the weather, because the weather's getting funny. It's about fall is hit, so people are going to start getting sick, and we're going to see what this COVID is going to be at a different level probably now than ever. Because when we all left work and all that was like March, it was all like a week before spring. Now we about to hit the fall and winter season of this, and it's going to be some grave concern as far as that. But we'll
Yes.
see how it is. All right, good people. Thanks, Herb, and I'll get with you, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Take care, everyone.
All right, peace.